Hey y'all. Making sure the mic is working. Hey y'all, it's D-Day and this is Black Tea and Honey. Hey y'all, so it's been a minute. As you probably noticed, it's been around 8 months since I have released a new episode, and I'm really happy to be back. I really needed time to just adjust after the spring and the winter, which was really crazy hectic. And as you can see, I moved and I have a new setup. So we'll see if this one sticks, if I like it. So far, so good. I don't have to really adjust any really heavy furniture like I did last time. It's a little bit more of a comfortable seating. I hope that you are having a beautiful post-Capricorn full moon. Before we get started, I want to read a poem for you. So in honor of the Capricorn full moon that has just concluded, I want to read my poem, Just Like You Sis. So subtle she is, Hana Minosa in all her luminous glory. Just like you, Gita, just like you, Winek. So powerful she is, Hana Minosa, as she bends the tides to her will, just like you, Gita, just like you, Winek. So kind she is, Hana Minosa, using her light to guide our paths, just like you, Gita, just like you, Winek. So misunderstood she is, Hana Minosa, blamed for the madness of weak men, just like you, Gita, just like you, Winek. So loving she is, Hana Minosa, reminding us we need to feel in order to heal, just like you, Gita, just like you, Winek. So enduring she is, Hana Minosa, rising and setting throughout the test of time, just like you, Gita, just like you, Winek. And that is Just Like You Sis on page 104 of my book, Seeds, Stories of Afro-Indigenous Resilience. So I always like to open up a Black Tea and Honey episode with a Seeds poem to kind of set the mood. Y'all know I am a poet and a storyteller. That is my first love and my first identity. And I also love to share safe space. So actually, today's topic is on that. It's on safe space. I'm actually really getting comfortable in making this podcast, a safe space for myself. The first couple episodes, I don't know if y'all noticed, I definitely noticed that I wasn't as comfortable as I would have liked. And I think that if I'm just recording into a microphone, I'm really just listening to my voice and I'm listening to the story, it kind of helps me to not be as distracted as I would be like having this whole setup. For those who are listening via audio, I am talking about my video that is available on YouTube to view as well. I'm really trying to learn how to make safe space for myself and make comfortable space, and not only surrounded by a space that is clean and is beautiful and is safe physically, but also a space that allows myself and other people to completely lean into and embrace who they are fully. So before we get into that a little bit, I want to continue on, or I guess loop back to our astrological forecast. The moon is now in Capricorn. It'll actually be moving into Aquarius probably by time this is posted. Interestingly enough, I was looking back at my notes from my first ever podcast last year in June of 2023. That topic was moving in grace, and it aired on, I don't know actually when it aired. I think it aired several days later because it ended up getting like a concussion or something crazy. So talking about moving in grace. But anyway, I was looking back at my notes, and under astrological forecast, wouldn't you like to know that that was also recorded during a Cancer sun, a Sag moon with an upcoming Capricorn full moon? And here we are a year later, now on June 23rd, 2024, when this is recorded. We're in Cancer season, so happy Cancer season to all the Cancer babies out there and all the Cancer placements. I myself have tons of Cancer placements as far as house placements. So I have a Capricorn stellium, and all my Capricorn placements are in the 4th house. So woohoo! Hey y'all. Yeah, happy Cancer season. And no, Cancers are not just crybabies. They will cut you. If you mess with their family or those that they love, they're very protective and they're very strategic and very intelligent, and they love to make a home or safe space. And so actually, I didn't really connect that with the start of Cancer season, but there you go. And yes, like I said, just as last year, we're in the Capricorn, coming off of a Capricorn full moon and into an Aquarius full moon. So if this past weekend you feel like you haven't been really able to sleep, or you've still been feeling tired or having some joint pain, or if you've just been kind of still on your grind and like working, I hope that you found some time this weekend to take care of yourself and to really lean into your self-care and self-love and rest, because rest is so important. And we'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, the Aquarius moon, man, we're going to start off this week a little weird. We're going to start off this week with an Aquarius moon in Cancer. All I can say is it's going to be wet. Think of like a wet vibe energy. Yes, Aquarius is not a water sign. It is an air sign. However, Aquarius is the water bearer, right? So we know that Cancer being a water sign and then Aquarius being the water bearer, just give yourself some grace this week. Give yourself some space this week to space out and to feel your feels. And now for the latest current news and tea. Happy belated Juneteenth. We're not free until we're all free. Don't let the hype of Juneteenth or Pride Month, and also happy belated, not belated Pride Month. We're still in Pride Month, but happy Pride Month. And this is just something I'm going to go on a little rant. And like I said, this is part of me leaning more into my space and leaning more into my truth. Me seeing Juneteenth theme colored and Pride Month theme colored things in the decoration section of like XYZ store is just capitalism at work, right? Like the real heart of it is that we need to be able to be who we are unapologetically without people demeaning and undermining us, without people denying us jobs, without police killing us, without being the victims of genocide, right? As Indigenous people are still to this day. Talking about safe space, this week I actually went to go visit Stagville and the Stagville Plantation, which is about 30 minutes north of Durham, North Carolina. I thought it was very interesting because prior to the visit I had on Saturday, the 22nd, I actually went to this, I guess you could call it like a digital gallery, if you would. Basically, they were announcing and releasing their website. The event was called Making a Way from No Way, and it was held by or hosted by the Stagville Descendants Council and many, many others at the Durham Public Library, the main library downtown. How many of you have cats? Like that, if you just heard what just happened, that was my cat being a cat and opening doors with his paws. So this event was to educate the public more on Stagville through their new website launch. StagmoreMemorialProject.com is where you can find more information. It was really awesome. The best thing that came out of it really was that in the midst of watching this presentation, one of my relatives actually came up on the screen, and his name is Bonnie Lee Day. And I was like, a day with an E, and from Durham. I bet this is somebody I'm related to. I took a photo of the PowerPoint and I sent it out into the Facebook family ethers. And I was like, hey, does anyone know who this is? And so my mom ended up texting some cousins and got like one response. And one of our cousins was like, oh, we used to live next door to him. And then another cousin later on was like, oh, that's my first cousin. I believe that would be, our great-grandfathers were brothers. Anyway, but I mean, family is close enough that we all still know each other. It's a small world over here. It was so interesting because as I was just really enthralled with, wow, like one of our ancestors here, or one of our relatives who is now an ancestor, is related to the Stagville, who is a descendant of folks who survived the Stagville plantation. Then I totally had to refocus, and then they're talking about, oh yeah, he was a famous moonshine like distributor and like driver, and actually that he inspired NASCAR. Like he was one of the inspirations for NASCAR, and he was like shot by the police in the 50s. And so yeah, I had no idea about one of my relatives, that some of my other relatives, they knew him quite well. But yeah, it's just so interesting. And then I just had to like put my head in my hands. I'm like, of course he's a fucking moonshiner. Like, of course. Like, yep, that's our relative. In addition to that, after actually during the presentation, they listed some family names of some common family names that were folks that were at the Stagville plantation enslaved there, and Bryant and Smalls were listed on the presentation. I'm like, wow, I have those two names on my this is my maternal grandmother's side. My day side is my maternal grandfather's side. And so I thought, well, you know, white people be white people in and be giving black people or forcing black people to have their last name. So maybe it's just a coincidence. And then I'm reading like the pamphlet after the presentation's over, and they're talking about people being brought from North Carolina, forcibly, of course, to Alabama, to the new plantations. And this family whose name escapes me right now, these slave owners, I don't know a better word to call them. There's probably a better, like, more demeaning word than that. But anyway, these people who thought they could own human beings, they had a plantation up here. And then someone was educating me yesterday that after the Indian Removal Act, that's when a lot of land opened up in Alabama and more west. And then that's when they moved and took the enslaved people with them. So anyway, there's still a lot. The jury's out on several details, of course, but I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. And I met people there who I was related to. It was just really awesome to connect. I also got to see my friend, shout out to Leilani Clark. She is the communications director, I want to say, for the Stagville Descendants Association. So yeah, this all kind of circles back to this idea of safe space. And something really trippy happened to me, y'all. Yesterday was actually the Stagville Descendants gathering. It was all just folks who are descendants of people who were enslaved at the Stagville plantation at one point or another. One of the buildings there, I had a dream about several months ago, and it really just made me emotional every single time I saw that building. It wasn't a bad dream. It was actually a good dream, and I was like a cook, like I was cooking in the kitchen. And when I went inside, the fucking kitchen was set up the exact same way it was in my dream. It was really wild. It was really emotional, crazy, right? Intense. And it just kind of brings me back to this idea of safe space. Safe space is such a big concept, right? What I really want to narrow down is the ability to take something and take a situation in which you are absolutely not safe and create something beautiful out of it. And I feel like that's exactly what the ancestors and what the folks at the Stagville plantation did, and in many plantations, of course, across the South. And there were northern plantations too. So there's that. But I do want to say as well that these buildings that they had, and I'll like link in some photos, they're like huge buildings. There's 2-story buildings, you know, houses, and they built them themselves. And it just really made me think about my great grandmother and how she fled Alabama, right? Being a sharecropper. Well, if she's really a sharecropper, why did she have to flee? That's a whole other story. And going up to Buffalo, New York, becoming a welder, and coming back down and buying each of her siblings, there were 13 of them, plus her 5 kids, out of sharecropping debt. Ended up leaving Alabama, owning land. Nobody wants to go down there. Because there's still so much fear in the family. Before she died at the age of 47, my great grandmother owned 3 homes. 2 of them were gifted to her from an older Jewish woman who she cared for. She was like her caretaker, and the other one she bought outright. And unfortunately, none of those homes made it. Actually, at least a couple were set to fire, and that's a whole other story. But anyway, it's this idea of creating a way out of no way, creating a safe space. Anyway, just had to come back from a little break. My cat was trying to get into the closet, and I realized he was trying to get his toy. And I'm like, okay, great, I can get him his toy. And then, of course, he's playing with it, so you're probably going to hear it in the background. But anyway, whatever. So creating a safe space, right? My cat's like, you're not creating a safe space for me. Safe space is so imperative, because if you don't feel safe, think about, you know, the basic hierarchy of needs, right? Like if you're not getting your sense of safety and basic needs met, whether you look at it like a triangle or you look at it like a circle, you can't branch out the branch or the trunk of the tree can't get wider if the source of nutrition and the roots are not strong. The ability to also create safe space for ourselves means that we're not overworking ourselves, and capitalism loves to make sure that we're overbooked and overwhelmed. And honestly, y'all, I've had to become very intentional about creating safe space for myself in the realm of not allowing myself to overwhelm myself. This is not a sponsorship, but this a tool that's really been helpful for me is this thing called a clarity journal by Annie Sanchez. She also runs 𝑺𝒆𝒆𝒅𝒔 strategies, and it's really helped me just writing out what I have to do and just listing out 10 things. And there's so much room on a paper, right? Because I was using that for a while. It was helping me, and then I just started using my notes on my phone. Well, the problem with that is that you can just keep adding stuff, right? You could add stuff at like 6 p.m. and be like, oh, I need to do this or that. And of course, urgent things come up, but the idea of having a certain amount of space that represents the finite amount of time that you have has been so helpful for me to keep myself in balance with my needs and with work and with certain clients, with my book and all of that. And I also color code things. I color code, family in purple and self-care in orange and pink, book stuff in green, and other work client stuff in navy blue. If one color is showing up too much on the page, it's really been helping me. Creating safe space for ourselves is not only having a roof over our head, which is something that we can't take for granted, because the rates of homelessness right now are so astronomically high. The chances that you're watching this and that some of you are actually living out of a hotel because you can't afford to live in an apartment or any other type of situation is actually pretty high. And that's really tragic to me. And it's something that we definitely got to fucking change, because it's ridiculous. You have people working fucking full time and still can't afford their rent. It's crazy. That's like living with somebody else, like a partner. Sometimes you can't even still do it. For me, I was only able to create safe space for myself when I had the ability to choose who I was around. But if you're just surviving day to day, I, at least in my experience, have stayed in relationships or situations for way longer just for the sake of survival and have a roof over my head. And I get it, like, no judgment there, but we have a higher calling than that. How do we fucking work together against the system to make sure that everybody has a safe, nurturing space to live in? I guess I'm tying this into my auntie advice. I just kind of up and started Black Tea and Honey again after 6 or 8 months. So I haven't had a chance to ask folks for questions. I definitely will for the next one. So be on the lookout for that on my Instagram stories. But in the meantime, your auntie advice is just going to come straight off the dome, is balance your life. Find a balance as much as you can with as little or much control as you have in your life to make changes. Make those fucking changes. It may be difficult, it may be harrowing, and it may be exhausting. Make sure you rest. But if you're in a place where you're not safe and you're not loved and you're not appreciated, you deserve to be in a space that loves and appreciates and supports you. That's my advice for this week. I know it's now time to go because my cat is making fun noises with his toys, and yeah, he just wants to be a part of the podcast. Please do drop in the comments below. How do you find balance? How do you take time for self-care in such a crazy capitalistic society that wants to keep you overwhelmed and underslept? This has been Dominique Daye Hunter for Black Tea and Honey. If you are interested in supporting my work and want to hear more about my poetry and storytelling, feel free to go to the link in the description to purchase my book, Seeds, Stories of Afro-Indigenous Resilience. I also have some really cool backpacks, journals, which are all designed by me. And be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to see next episode. See you then.